Today we're going to be talking about sliders, but most importantly, what I've realized over the last month or so, when people comment and talk about sliders, is that actually everyone's having different issues and plays the game very differently. But instead of me just bringing you a set of sliders that, yes, use these sliders, these are going to work for you, I'm going to go through the sliders today and talk about what I would tweak and change depending on your play style. Because as much as I'd love my slider set to be the ultimate, most realistic simulation style of football, quite simply not that entertaining on YouTube to do that for my Let's Play series. So my sliders tend to be designed around the idea of getting exciting football while trying to keep it as realistic as possible in order to give the audience some enjoyable matches. So you might not get the same enjoyment out of the sliders I use as sliders that you might want to use. You also might just be using sliders to kind of increase or decrease the difficulty of whatever level you're playing on. There's certain people out there that find Legendary difficult. There's certain people out there that find Ultimate difficulty not difficult enough. Everybody's different. Everybody plays different. And you should get the most out of this game as humanly possible. At the end of the day, it ain't cheap, is it? This ain't a cheap game, and you should get the most out of it. So sliders have certainly helped me achieve that. I have zero doubt that I would not be able to create the content I do around this game if it was not for tweaking sliders. But when it comes to it, personal preference, I always slow the game down. I play on slow game speed, so that is something I'd recommend as well. FIFA is very arcadey and very quick. Remember, you're changing these sliders in the premise of doing a career mode. You're not changing these as if you were playing or learning to play against someone online. If you want to do that, go do that on Ultimate Team. So I tend to very often slow down the sprint speed, but you don't want to slow down acceleration too much because you'll notice your players then just don't have the ability to ever catch up to anyone. The acceleration is quite important that you keep it fairly high. I don't keep it at 50. I think mine's set at 40 at the moment, but it's definitely something you could tweak either here or there. But the sprint speed being slowed down will just slow down the actual player's speed more than anything. Although be aware, when you do that, the quick players will feel like quick players and the slow players, they will feel like slow players. Another thing, if you are trying to aim for realism, is pass error. People might look and say, why would you put the pass error up for yourself and also for the CPU? This is something you've got to do for the CPU as well, is put the pass error up. It's something I actually do myself. And I would say on the current patch, because of the goals that the CPU scores, I would put the shot error up. Now, if you're thinking in your head, but that's going to make it too easy, they're going to miss more shots, they're going to mess up more passes, it's absolutely fine, because what I do with that is then I actually move the run frequency up for me personally, so that they make a lot more runs. So when a good pass does come off, it tends to be one that puts them clean through. Although they might not score it every time, you're going to end up seeing a few more realistic stats and just the game feeling a little bit more realistic than the opposition going through twice, scoring both of them in the top corner. I don't really get any enjoyment out of that. Again, these may be different for you. So if you're playing the game right now on Legendary and you're like, Yorkie, I'm struggling on Legendary, I'm not really at that level yet, but world class is way too easy for me. I'm smashing team. Easy solution. You can stay on world class and just make the team better. Increase their marking. If you're scoring 3 or 4 goals against them, put their marking up. You ain't going to keep scoring 3 or 4 goals against them if you do that. Everyone who's gone Legendary and move their marking down and then just improve it as you feel like you've learned the Legendary AI. This is an easy way for you to move up or down through the difficulties without having a ridiculous learning curve. Because I must admit, when I first got back into FIFA, the step from world class to Legendary did feel pretty big. But once I learned how the AI was moving, I got comfortable with it and I got comfortable with the game. And I had to use sliders to make the game a little bit more difficult for myself. But this is a good way to make your first step up to those difficulties, is either increase or decrease what you're struggling with. If you're struggling to score, make them worse at marking. If you're at a point where they're not scoring, improve their passing, improve their run frequency. This really is down to the individual and how you feel about the game. I also reduced the pass speed. If you are aiming for realism, what you want to do with your sliders is you want to add more error to the game. So first touch control error, pass error, shot error, because there's a lot more of that in real football. Slow the pace of the game down, slow down passing speed. You will see a lot more realistic games and you can actually up your game time. I found a big problem for me is when I first started out on Legendary on FIFA 22. If I did anything above 4 minutes, we were seeing 5, 6, 7 goals in games. And I just didn't want to see that in every match. It's just not how football goes. These are things that I would recommend you tweak a lot. You can just go and get one slider set. There's loads on the internet. There's Rail Sim slider sets. You can just go get them. Feel free to do that. In my opinion, I've tried them in the past and they just haven't worked for my playstyle, and I've ended up tweaking them anyway. So why not actually make your own slider set that is going to get the best out of the game for you and not for somebody else? Again, another one that is definitely just for you. You know, see how you feel with it, but I'm a big believer in football. There's a lot of injuries. Look at Liverpool just a season ago and what impact it had. You just don't get injuries on career mode. I don't know what it is. They just don't like to give you them. You don't even get the like 1 monthly injury anymore. They took that out of the game. So this slider, for me, I think is on 85. This needs to go way up. And I still don't get that many injuries. If you're watching the series on the channel, which if you're not, make sure you check them out, as well as smashing the subscribe button right now and leaving a like button if you're going to enjoy the video or if it helps you at all. Also, always feel free to leave me feedback in the comments. I try and get back to every single comment that is put on a video because it's important to me. I like having conversations with you guys. It's a really enjoyable part of my day. Now, the severity, you might want to tweak here and there. I've got it at, I think, 70 or 65. I haven't had that many severe. I think I've only had 1 7-month injury so far on the game this year over nearly 100 hours. So the severity probably for me could come up a little bit more. To be honest, you could even go higher than the 85 I've got it on now. I'm totally thinking about changing that myself in my save. Another great thing about the injuries, if you're doing a career mode, it's going to force you to use players that you might not have used as much. And you might unearth a hidden gem that you end up having to use because somebody else was injured and falling in love with them. Those kind of stories that can come together in a career mode, I think are really important to keep you invested and enjoying it. At the end of the day, when it comes to sliders, for me, it's all about trying to make the most out of career mode and trying to get the best enjoyment possible. FIFA don't always give us the greatest tools in order to play career mode, and I always view it as a sandbox. I always tell people it's a sandbox for you to play in and get the most fun out of it as possible. FIFA isn't going to give you absolutely everything that you want in there, although I do think it could be doing a bit of a better job. You've got to add stuff in yourself to get the most out of it, whether that be rules or restrictions. Stuff like this with the sliders definitely helps. If I'm being honest, I don't usually mess around with too much of the user stuff. All this stuff kind of just stays the same for me, apart from at the moment the first touch control error is up for me because I want my players to not always have the greatest of touches. And what I've noticed with that is the worst players will have poor touches. So if you're in League 2, you're probably going to not enjoy this as much, but it does mean that the players that don't have the greatest control of the ball are more likely to tap the ball too far ahead or not control it correctly when the ball comes in. The power bar is 100% up to you. It just is how quickly the power bar fills up. I've been asked about this a couple of times now, and the power bar means nothing, to be honest. This is just how quickly do you want the bar to fill up for power. I think 50 is fine. I've always had it at 50. If you want the bar to fill up quicker, then I mean, that's up to you. The only time I could think the bar could maybe fill up a bit quicker is if I'm doing a switch, but it's never really been an issue for me, so I've never messed with it. The rest of it, I don't really touch. Line height, all that stuff. It's just the injuries and then slowing the game down really for me, and then maybe some error. I'll make my passing worse. At the end of the day, when it comes to user input, these things won't have too much of an effect. I could probably sit and talk about sliders and FIFA for far too long, so I am just going to leave it there. I want it to be short and sweet, and then you guys can message me in the comments. Join the Discord. It's down below, the link, if you want to message me in there as well, or on Twitter. Like, my Twitter's Yorkiemann. If you ever want to message me on there and talk sliders or just talk career mode in general and what you can do to try and get the most out of it, because it's huge for my channel as career mode, and I want to see as many people as humanly possible enjoying the game. And I know patches over time make things more difficult. I've had to tweak sliders a lot as patches have come. Like, in my head, the first time around, I was just going to release a slider set, and then the patch came out, and my sliders just made the game ridiculous. Like, literally, the AI took one shot and it was a goal, like, every time. So it's definitely been a work in process trying to figure out the sliders, and I think as time's gone on, talking to people has just made me realize that you guys would be better off served by being able to tweak the sliders yourself. Again, though, there's some great slider sets out there, like Operation Sports. I think Spoony Pizzas recently did a slider set as well, so there's several out there if you want to try them, but personally, I would figure out how to tweak these yourself and get the most out of it that way and cater the sliders to your play style. That's going to be it for me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Yorkie, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.